What is up YouTube, I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 Wild Rift, and this patch is gigantic with so many buffs. The meta is gonna be completely different due to all of these changes, so let's get right into it. First up, we have the newest champion Zilean, which I will make a video for him, so I'm not gonna go into detail here. However, he's a very interesting and unique champion with a kit that is quite a bit different than his kit in League of Legends. So it's going to be very interesting to see him in Wild Rift. He's going to be pretty much like a completely new exclusive champion because of how different his kit is. So Ambessa is getting a rework. Pretty much they're removing the Katarina passive where all her abilities and energy resets. And instead they're giving more burst into her first ability while also giving her a few new tools to make outplays, like giving immunity to crowd control when casting her second ability. Overall, these changes should make Ambessa a lot easier to balance. They seem to be a bit on the strong side. However, without the reset passive, she won't be able to just completely run over your entire team. Of course, these changes won't come in until June 26th, so we won't worry about them too much right now. Let's look at what's going to affect us right now, and that's the Fiora changes. These overall seem like buffs to me. Her first ability damage is going to go down a little bit, however it's going to be a lot easier to hit her passive vitals. So skilled Fiora players should have an advantage, even though her damage is going slightly down. If you're really good on Fiora and you can get on those vitals, this will overall feel like a buff. The movement speed on the lunge is now scaling with your movement speed, so if you slow down Fiora, her lunge will be slower, but if Fiora is really fast with her passive, she's going to be able to do her lunge a lot quicker and be able to proc these vitals, so if you're a good Fiora player, this is overall a very nice change. Moving on to Darius, this is a pretty massive buff, and especially for jungle Darius. Jungle Darius will be able to clear his jungle a lot quicker, but lane Darius will also be getting a small AD buff, which is nice. Overall, these changes are mostly focused on Darius jungle, and we're definitely going to see a lot more Darius jungle in this next patch. Speaking of jungle, Jax is also receiving a nice buff to his jungle clear. This will help him a lot. I've always had the Jax jungle low on my tier list because of how slow his clear speed was. But this should be a nice buff for his clear speed. I overall think both Darius and Jax are likely to be S tier junglers on the next patch. If you want some free LP before we will catch on how broken they are, especially Darius, definitely pick these champions up. Nunu and Willump is receiving an unnecessary buff. It's a tiny buff. This is a very tiny placebo buff. However, Nunu and Willump was already strong. The reason why RIOT does these types of buffs is when a champion is already strong but their play rate is really low. They're going to do this placebo buff, so people think he's suddenly really strong, so his play rate goes up and people try him and realize that, oh my god, Nunu and Willump is actually really strong. So that's the kind of buff this is. So he's already a strong champion, but this buff does pretty much nothing. Fiddlesticks is getting the love that he deserves. I thought Fiddlesticks after the Malignance addition had a lot of potential, but his numbers were just not quite there. This does help slightly. Again, this is a bit of a placebo buff as well. However, his ulti cooldown going down does open up a lot more opportunities because of how ultimate dependent Fiddlesticks is. So I do think good Fiddlesticks players can definitely take advantage of this buff and get some free wins in the next patch. So overall a small buff, but a very meaningful small buff for good Fiddlesticks players. Pantheon is going to be getting a little more damage on his first ability. I've always thought Pantheon was a strong champion, however the durability changes did make it a lot harder for him to one-shot. So having 10 extra damage on his first ability does help in that regard, but also helps a lot with his jungle clear. So again, every time any champion's jungle clear gets buffed, the buff is really big, because being able to clear your jungle fast is extremely important. So again, Pantheon, nice little buff on an already decent champion. Diana is getting a little more one-shot potential on her second ability and a little extra damage on her passive. A very good change after Diana has been weak for pretty long. I say her second ability, I mean her third ability, excuse me. So she's going to be getting a little extra burst. Overall, I think these are nice changes. Should help both lane and jungle Diana quite a bit, and she has been struggling in recent patches. so I'm glad to see these buffs. A lot of buffs on a lot of different junglers, so the jungle meta will look quite a bit different now. Katarina, these are changes I'm extremely excited about, and these are massive buffs. I am not joking. Katarina is being actually buffed. All the recent buffs that they've done for Katarina have been quite weak, but these changes are actually good. So this took me a while to understand the math behind the velocity changes, which are passive, but overall pretty much is going to be getting in the late game a 25 to 30% AP scaling increase. It's going to be almost at 100% AP scaling, meaning that she scales really good with AP now. So she will have the damage required to really sweep up teamfights if she's able to hit her passive. So these are really good changes, especially for really good Katarina players that are able to get her passive on the enemies. A lot of bad Katarina players don't end up actually even getting the passive damage, so when Riot wants to buff Katarina for good players, they will focus on buffing the passive. So Katarina is actually going to be really strong, especially if you are a good Katarina player. I'm not sure if she's going to be in the S tier because of how strong mages are right now. However, Katarina, I've thought she's been pretty bad for a while, but these changes give me confidence that she will at least be a good pick in certain situations, right? I'm not saying that she's going to be the best mid laner of all time. I think the mages are still going to mostly dominate, but if you do want to play an assassin mid lane, Katarina can have a lot of potential now. Moving on to, again, the mages that continue to dominate, this Ahri buff is definitely not needed. She's just getting a 10% AP buff on her first ability, 5% when it goes, 5% when it comes back. Of course, the 5% when it comes back is true damage, so even though it seems like a small buff, it's actually pretty good because it's true damage. Some more base health to help her in the early game. So this will help a lot with both her wave clear and her early game trades because of the health increase. I'm okay with this, however, I thought Ahri was already in a good spot. This buff kind of puts her over the edge, and now she will be one of the best mid laners in the current meta. Which is nice, I guess. Ahri is fun to play, and I don't think these are overwhelming buffs to make her insanely OP or anything like that. But it's a champion that definitely didn't deserve buffs, getting buffed, as Riot does per usual. But these are actually nice changes. Ahri will be able to quickly clear the minion wave, be able to roam with her ulti. Of course, she synergizes well with Malignance as well, so I'm excited to see more Ahri this patch. Moving on to Yasuo, I had so many of you noobs in my comments last patch breakdown telling me how broken Yasuo was and why do I have him so low in my tier lists. But of course, Daddy Royal gets proven right once again because Riot is completely buffing Yasuo because of how weak he was last patch. They're increasing his shield value by so much. Like, his base shield value is insane, and now they're adding a critical strike rate, so now his shield is gonna be massive. This is a huge buff on his shield. His first ability is going to be doing a lot more damage from critical strikes. They're increasing the attack damage ratio. His third ability is getting a cooldown buff, which is definitely going to help in the early game especially, but definitely for chasing down enemies in the late game too. It's going to give him so much more utility. And the armor penetration gain with critical strikes, this is a crazy buff, by the way, from 30% to 50%. So after Yasuo ults, he pretty much has 50% armor pen. He's going to be dealing true damage with all attacks and first abilities. These are insanely big buffs. So I did think that Yasuo was weak, but these buffs are insane. They're just insane. There's nothing more to say about this. Yasuo buffs are absolutely insane. He's gonna be one of the strongest champions in this patch. If you're good on crit Yasuo, who's really hard to play, by the way, one of the hardest champions. Tank Yasuo is pretty easy, but crit Yasuo is really hard. So if you are good on crit Yasuo, this is your chance to get some free wins. This is probably gonna be my permaban going forward, but crit Yasuo is gonna be really strong. So definitely pick him up if you enjoy playing Yasuo. Samira is getting some buffs. I keep seeing, again, so many noobs telling me that Samira and Draven are good champions, put them higher in your tier lists. No, they're not. But finally, they're receiving some buffs. Samira is getting some movement speed increase in her passive, which is definitely going to help clean up fight a lot better. She's going to be getting some more damage on her flare and some more attack speed gain on the Wild Rush. These are decent buffs, but what's really going to help Samira are actually the support buffs that we're going to see later on. a lot of these supports that she synergizes with, mostly Nautilus, but also Thresh, are getting really good buffs. So when the supports that Samira is really good with are better, Samira is automatically better, and these little buffs will also help her, so Samira will actually be a big threat this patch. So these are overall nice buffs and indirect buffs that Samira will be receiving. Definitely will be one of the better AD carries. I'm not going to say that she's going to be god tier, even though her competition as well is getting nerfed. Corki's getting nerfed. I wouldn't put her in god tier, but she's one of the stronger ADCs now. Draven is getting 10% bonus attack damage on his first ability, and this might seem like a small change, but trust me, it is not. This is a big buff. This is just a big buff. It's not gonna push Draven over the edge. However, Draven's whole kit relies on his first ability dealing more damage than any other champion, right? It pretty much does more than double the damage of an auto attack, and it's just an auto attack. So Draven's auto attack just do more than double the damage. So if you're increasing that by 10%, you're just giving him even more damage, which is really insane. And a lot of the ADCs he synergizes with, like Nautilus and Thresh, are also getting buffed. So overall, this is a nice change for Draven. Again, I'm not going to say that this puts him in god tier or anything like that, but it definitely makes him a very strong ADC. And if you are good on Draven, because he is one of the hardest champions to play, he's in a really, really good spot now. These are some very nice buffs. He definitely won't be the best ADC, but he's a lot more viable than he was last patch. He's not really a troll pick anymore. He's a good champion to play. Moving on, Thresh buffs, these are actually really big. Thresh auto-attacks a lot, right? Because he's a ranged engaged champion, which is rare, right? Imagine if Nautilus can auto-attack you from a range, right? That's what Thresh is. So giving him base attack damage does help a lot, especially in these early fights. And of course, his most important spell, having its cooldown reduced, helps a lot too. Overall, this is a very nice buff from Thresh, and if you're a skilled Thresh player, this will be a god tier champion if you're skilled on him. Of course, he's one of the hardest supports to play, so if you're not skilled on him, you're probably not even going to realize that he got buffed. Moving on to Nautilus. Nautilus is the easier version of Thresh. He's been one of the strongest supports for a while now. I don't know why RIOT is buffing him, but this definitely pushes him into god tier. He will definitely just be the best support next patch. The damage on his first ability is now way too high. He does way too much damage. It's a similar buff to what they did to Blitzcrank that made him really OP. They just made his first ability do insane damage while also buffing his base stats, like they've done with Nautilus. But just to be safe, they also gave him more damage on his third ability. And this will help quite a bit with Nautilus jungle as well. His clear speed will be a little better. However, these buffs are mostly targeting Nautilus support, where he's gonna go from whatever tier he is now to being the best support in the game. So welcome to your new god tier overlord, Nautilus. Volibear is receiving some small nerfs. He was a bit on the strong side, but I definitely didn't think that he needed nerfs. These are decent nerfs too, because they're kind of they're making sure that the good Volibear players can still be successful with him while punishing bad Volibear players by giving him a smaller shield duration. It also creates more counterplay. So overall, it's a decent change. I don't think it was needed, but it was a decent change. Nocturne, damage goes down. Finally, they're nerfing some of the god tier champions, so we're gonna have some variety in Wild Rift. So Nocturne is getting nerfed. This is actually a pretty big nerf. It might seem small, but he's losing on max levels of his first ability 15 damage, base damage, and 15 AD that he gets. So that's actually a really big nerf for a champion like Nocturne, who's an assassin. And with all the other junglers getting buffed, I do think this actually makes him quite a bit weaker. He's still going to be playable. He's still going to be this great assassin. His ult is still going to bring a lot of value to team fights and catch enemies off guard in the side lanes. However, he's not going to be as overwhelming as he is right now. Definitely not a god tier champion anymore, but still a very strong and respectable jungler. Moving on to the Corki nerfs. Finally, these are actually massive Corki nerfs. Losing 4 base ADs actually pretty big punishment, and nerfing his Gatling gun, which is what made him super OP in the Dragon lane, is really nice to see as well. He will still be viable, he will still be decent, or he will still even be strong. However, he's not gonna be the OP overwhelming ADC that he is right now. If I were to rate him right now before I even play the patch, I'd probably say A tier, maybe S tier. So he's still gonna be a strong champion, don't get me wrong. However, these are some really nice nerfs because he was absolutely dominating the meta. So it's nice to see him kind of taking a step back. Finally, Seraphine, who's received so many nerfs lately, and now she gets nerfed again. Of course, on her second ability, which is just so overwhelmingly strong. So overwhelmingly strong with the Ionian Boots of Lucidity. So I'm glad to see another Seraphine nerf. At this point, AP Seraphine is actually becoming a lot more worth it than shield spam Seraphine. However, overall, these are some nice nerfs. I don't know how much I need to keep nerfing her, but I'm happy to not see Seraphine in my games. But especially with the Nautilus and Thresh buffs, Seraphine's gonna have a hard time. These nerfs should put her quite low in the tier lists. She won't be as dominant as she has been for the last few patches. And these are all the changes that affect the ranked. The rest of the changes are for ARAM, which we do not care about in this channel. This channel is ranked only. So thank you so much for watching. Leave down in the comments which champions you think will be really strong this patch and which champions you think will be really weak. I appreciate you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.